And so why we're here today is to be able to ask you to say yes to a bill that we're going to present. And this bill really has one goal: to build a rescue team. Because there's so many frontline warriors and heroes, but there's just not enough. And we need to support them, and we need more of them to get to these 50,000 boys and girls. So this bill is strictly to create a rescue team that has the funding, the support, the training, the technology, so that they can get to these 50,000.
I'm intrigued by this concept of a rescue team, and it seems like HSI, Homeland Security, is the preferred partner there, and I want to delve into why, because in this Congress, we had an FBI agent sitting right where you're all sitting right now, Steve Friend, and he was working these cases in our beloved Florida, and he was pulled off of those cases to go and take down people's license plates at school board meetings over parents protesting. You used to go after the worst of the worst, didn't you?
Yes, I believe so.
You went after people who looked at child porn?
Yes.
People who were sexually exploiting children?
Yes.
And then you were in the parking lot of a school board meeting, taking down the information of parents. What happened to the cases that you were working to protect our communities from the worst predators that exist?
I was told they were not to be resourced, and then after I was suspended, they were handed off to local law enforcement.
Wow, so the FBI just decided it was more important to have you in that parking lot of that school board meeting than getting the worst of the worst away from people that they could harm.
That's correct.
I guess I want to understand best how to assemble the type of rescue team that you're talking about, and then maybe thinking about some of the assets that exist, like at the FBI, in addition to those at Homeland Security. So, perhaps Mr. Cole, Mr. Madsen, your law enforcement experience, you could draw on that and talk about how to assemble the right equities and the right capabilities to attack the problem.
Yes, Mr. Gaetz. So Homeland Security investigation, surprisingly to most people, actually is responsible for more than 60% of child exploitation prosecutions, federal prosecutions in the United States. Traditionally, HSI is actually one of the first agencies to work this crime type. So prior to the internet, this material was smuggled into the country from foreign sources through our ports of entry and through the mails. U.S. Customs Service, which is the predicate agency for Homeland Security investigations, worked those investigations by seizing those materials as they came into the country across our borders. That gives us a legacy and long-term subject matter expertise in this crime type. And so we work closely with the U.S. Postal Service in that endeavor, and really the FBI didn't start working these cases until much later.
Yeah, but we're in a different era now. As Ms. Cooper's laid out, we've got to follow that digital footprint right back to the source so that we can make these rescues. And I guess I'm a little worried about Homeland Security because I'm holding this Inspector General report that analyzed how they're dealing with the number of unaccompanied children that are coming over the border. And I mean, in 16% of these cases, Homeland Security isn't even doing the documentation for where they're placing children. And we have over 8,000 children that we don't even know where to put them, that are in the custody of Homeland Security now. Mr. Madsen, do you have a perspective on maybe how to pull together the right equities to build the type of rescue team that we're discussing?
Thank you, Mr. Gaetz. As the former task force commander for North Florida, we worked very well with a lot of peer agencies within all the way from the Panhandle down to Rockledge, which was the area that I covered, both from federal and state and local, so between FDLE, FBI, and HSI. And we felt that was the appropriate way to collaborate and to work on these types of cases with the ability to prosecute federally when needed, or at the state level when needed.
And I just think we can, as the subcommittee with oversight over a lot of these equities that they're trying to pull together, we can give them the right encouragement and the right authority to do that. I've also been reviewing this Stanford Internet Observatory report on identifying and eliminating CSAM in generative machine learning training data and models. And I'm sort of interested in how AI interfaces with all this, because the report seems to say it's really troubling when you have these child exploitive materials that are part of the training models for AI, but the report goes on to say maybe it's AI that will help us do what Ms. Cooper is charging us to do and get to the core of the problem. And so, to any of you here, how do you see AI interfacing with both the perpetration of these crimes, but also perhaps the investigations and the prosecutions and the resolutions of them?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that answer. A couple things are really important to understand about AI. You have AI for good, right? So you have some tools that have been developed that are changing the game in terms of being able to find and locate these kids. And it's really important that we allow law enforcement to use those tools. But AI can be used for bad too. So you have some nefarious people on the web that are taking pictures of your child's Instagram account, your child's face, and they're adding nudity and unclothing those children and then extorting those children. So the times have changed where a child doesn't even need to be taking selfies anymore. They can just have a soccer page or a gymnastics page up, and you have these pedophiles, trolling them and extorting them. The one thing I think that's really important, I think Congress has a role to play in this. There are ways to determine between a fake image and a real image, and that technology needs to improve. It needs to be invested in. There are watermarks that need to be required by Congress. So any company that is developing an AI tool needs to have a type of watermark so that law enforcement, as they're reviewing these images, can really distinguish between the fake and the real.
I'd love to follow up with you on that. Mr. Chairman, I have a couple unanimous consent requests. I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the OIG Inspector General's report on some of these unaccompanied children at the border.
Without objection.
And I further seek unanimous consent to enter the Stanford Internet Observatory publication into the record as well.
Without objection.
And just, Mr. Tebow, last time I saw you in person, you were beating my Knowles in Tallahassee. So while I know this is a very challenging dynamic, it's good to see you again in person. Go Knowles.
Good to see you as well. I can't repeat the last part, but I guess, sorry, I'm not sorry. I don't know.